Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar by Phrase. Today, we will be looking at the introduction to Phrase TMS, standing for Translation Management System, especially from the perspective of a project manager. So thank you for taking the time to join us and to tune in. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. We have Vasilis Moschovos, our Senior Solution Architect, introducing the TMS to you today. Hi, Vasilis, how are you?
Hi, Clara, thanks. I'm good. Hopefully everyone's also okay.
Okay, that's great. So Vasilis will be walking you through the adding and managing users to TMS, then also creating a project, managing resources, uploading jobs, and he will also touch base on the linguistic view. So it is everything from the introduction for now, and I will hand over to Vasilis.
Thank you, Clara.
I will stop sharing my screen. You can take over.
So you should be able to see my screen now. And as you can see, in the Phrase TMS login option, Phrase TMS is a cloud-based system. So to log in, you simply come into the URL, cloudmaps.com, which of course will be updated in the future, including the Phrase suite. So you can log in using one credential to the entire Phrase suite. And once you get here, you simply add your username and your password, and you can log in. So let's log in with my project manager user here. And the first view you see are the projects. Now, the overall aspect of the project manager is the second most powerful role in the system behind the admin. The admin has also access to global configurations and global settings that are not available by default to the project manager role. However, there is an option to further enhance the project manager role if that's required and give them access to the backend, the global settings of the entire Phrase TMS. So the first thing that most project managers will actually have to do is create their users and then assign their roles accordingly, and also limit the access rights of what the user can do or what they can do in the system. So as you can see, I have already a few users in my system, and the roles that are available in the system are the project manager, the linguist, guest, and also the requester. Differences between roles, as I mentioned, admin is #1 access role in the entire system. Project manager has limited access only to the global settings. They can create projects, manipulate translation memories, terminologies, add users, and also limit what the users can access. Submitters is a specific role related to the submitter portal, where it allows the user to log in using email credentials and password, and then submit content for translation to the portal. And the guest user is something like a project manager with limited access rights. They can view projects, they can have the access right to edit content in the CAT tool, in the computer assistant translation tool, but they cannot create projects. So as the name suggests, they're just a guest of the system. So the project manager can create users either by clicking here on new, or they can import users in bulk by using a sample Excel file, which allows you to import users in bulk by adding the basic information such as first name, last name, email, and the role to the system. To create a user, you simply click on new. And from here, you need to fill out all the information like first name, last name, their email address, a specific username, and select the role. The role will dictate what they can do in the system. So if you want to add a project manager, then you have all the options available here to what the project manager is able to do in the system or not. So for example, if you only want them to view projects created by other users, you can activate this option. If you don't want them to see projects by other users and only their own projects, then you can just take away this right and they won't be able to do that. And if you have other entities in the entire TMS, such as clients, and you can limit access to a specific client in the system. So let's say, for example, Lexport, and this project manager will only see projects from that specific client. All this is available to change from the PM side, plus the latest option, the last option down here, allowing to modify global server settings, will make this PM essentially an admin, not with a full admin role. Creating a linguist doesn't have these options because the linguist doesn't have options related with project management. The relevancy here would be more about languages, and you can set up a language combination, so source language, target language, and specific clients plus domains that the linguist can work. So if you assign a specific domain to this linguist, they'll be more relevant to that specific domain when you create a project that contains this domain. So for example, if I add this domain, the linguist will appear first in the resource list, and you'll be able to select them easier. So once you created all the users and specify all the access rights, the most important aspect of a project, of course, project manager, of course, is the project. So PMs can create projects by either clicking on this plus icon here or this plus icon here. Before we create a new project, let's take a quick overview of the project list here. So this is where most of the PMs will spend their time looking at the projects and monitoring their progress. And anything you see here can be edited by clicking here. So you can add more columns or take away some columns that are not of interest of you. So let's say you don't want to see the client, you can just remove this column or when the date was created. By default, this is the most commonly used configuration. I can take away, for example, the number of the project, and then the view will be like this. And you can also add that column or anything else you want. And you can filter out the projects. So based by date created, specific client, and owner of the project, or the status of the project. So once you have configured everything and you are good to go with your project listing view, let's start by creating a project. One click plus new and add my project. So in the Phrase TMS, the project created is essentially a container containing the configuration of the project, but it doesn't contain any actual content, which is called a job in Phrase TMS. So you can create a project, and then we strongly suggest to save that as a project template, because this will be a key aspect of the system, enabling you to fully utilize the automation options within the Phrase TMS. But of course, you have to first create a project template. So we'll go over this wizard, showing you how to create a project step by step. As you can see here, there's also a legacy version. This is the latest version we use with the wizard. If you don't want this version, you can still switch back to the legacy version, which is a more straightforward approach when creating a project, giving you all the options one under the other. But let's focus today on project creation wizard. So as you can see, we have some details that are required. Project details plus some metadata. The metadata are not mandatory. And any other settings underneath are optional. So I can simply create a project by giving it a name. So let's call it webinar. Selecting my source language. Let's go with English. Target languages, this can be one or multiple. So let's go with some commonly used languages, German and Greek, because I'm also Greek. And I can set a due date. Let's go with 21st. And that's it. I can simply click create, and the project will be created as an empty container of configuration. But since we're going to use this as the creation of a project template, we'll go through the entire wizard and describe any aspect of the system when it's creating a project step by step. So metadata information allows you to filter out projects based on specific metadata that you have created in the system. So for example, I can have a selected client here. I can have a specific domain for my project, and I can also add subdomains. I can also add a cost center if I have any. I can add notes, which will be visible to the linguists throughout the entire project. And if I'm using purchase orders, I can also add a purchase order number. The next setting here in the system will be the use of machine translation engines. So in Phrase TMS, you can use multiple machine translation engines. They are part of the Phrase Translate suite, which will be renamed in our latest cadence. And you can select either one machine translation engine for all target languages or specific MT engines for each individual target language. For example, in our project now, if I had another platform here, if I had a different engine, I would use, for example, DeepL for German and Phrase NextMT for Greek, which you can do. The analysis option allows you to create an analysis after the file is uploaded. And we have two types available, the default analysis plus the post-editing. Differences between is default analysis is the analysis before any edit takes place. So the initial metrics, we could say, in the system. So you see exactly what the match rate is before any linguist has performed any edits. Post-editing, as the name suggests, gives you an analysis after edits have been performed in the system, and you can see the edit distance as well. So the default analysis can be named however you want, using also macros. And you can include memory matches, internal phases plus separate internal phases. So this is essentially an internal partition. You can also check for non-translatables. That includes and will be included in the analysis, machine translation matches, and you can exclude some of the segments here. One caveat to the exclusion of segments: if you exclude content from the analysis, you will get different results compared to the initial content volume you have submitted. So for example, if you submit 20,000 words and you exclude numbers, if there are 5,000 numbers in your project, you will only see 15,000 words, not 20,000. Sorry if I cough a bit. I'm a bit sick. So if you hear any coughing, apologies for that. And you can also perform the analysis based on the provider or language. By default, the default analysis will only be on a language level because we haven't assigned any providers, so you cannot split it up. And the provider analysis is mostly used for post-editing once a provider has been assigned to your project. And you can also analyze post-editing for TM, non-translatables, and machine translation, and change, of course, the count unit, either source or target. Default, again, would be source. Pre-translation option allows the project to be created and also be automatically pre-translated once a job is submitted, which will go through your translation memories and any machine translation engines you have selected for this specific project. All the available options here allow you to configure how the content will be pre-translated. So we can pre-translate from translation memory, and we can set a threshold of our matches. By default, we've set it up to 75%, which is the most commonly used threshold in the industry. And from a linguistic perspective, any match under 75% is not so useful to the linguist. It will be a very low fuzzy match. When you create a project, you can also pre-translate non-translatables if that's required. You can display non-translatable scores in the editor, so they can also be converted into fuzzy matches. You have the option to use machine translation as well. Using that, you can pre-translate content from machine translation. If both options, TM and MT, are activated, first we'll go through your translation memories, and then machine translation will also be applied. You can also display quality estimated machine translation. If you're using the Phrase Translate suite, you can get the MTQE score. And also you can use machine translation for segments with a TM match of 100 or more. These segments are most commonly used by the TM, and we would always suggest that these are used by the TM matches, not the machine translation match. But that's an option as well. If you want to improve the quality of some of those matches, you can use machine translation as well. And you can also propagate repetitions and lock repetitions. And a further automation allows you to set segment with the specific status to done to confirm. So 100%, 101, these are the super perfect matches, that require the least amount of editing, and of course, non-translatables, and repetition. And of course, this will also give you the option to automate the process. So we can set the job to complete it once it's submitted, after it's been translated. And we can also set the project to complete it once all the jobs are pre-translated. So if this is automated and all these two options are selected, you can have a fully automated project cycle, which starts, goes through your translation memory, machine translation, matches everything, sets everything to complete, to confirm, and then the entire job is complete as well. And the last aspect here allows you to lock segments from editing. So most commonly, the 101s, the super perfect matches and 100% matches would be locked from editing because they would have the most value and the best quality of translation. So you shouldn't be paying or spending time editing these kind of segments, and you can lock them out, including non-translatables if that's also required, plus machine translation matches. The next option in the wizard allows you to automate the aspects of the project. So when a project is assigned, once all jobs are either emailed or accepted, then the system automatically marks that as assigned, and you can mark the project as completed once either all our jobs are completed and delivered. So these are two different statuses. Completed means that the linguist has completed the task, and delivered means that the system receives an email saying that this task is now delivered back to the project manager. And of course, you can also automatically mark this project as cancelled once the PM manually cancels it. Or you can set this option to automatically mark the project as completed when a vendor is completing it. A vendor, by vendor, in the Phrase TMS, we mean an external LSP, not an internal linguist. QA options are also available through the project. They are also affected by global settings, but they can be edited on a specific project level. So any of these checks here that are either relevant or irrelevant for the specific project can be activated or deactivated. They can also include instant QA. Instant QA in Phrase TMS means that this option will be live while the linguist is editing the target segment. That's the instant QA. If you don't want this to be active, in case it sometimes either throws a false positive or it might be interruptive to the linguist, you can deactivate this check and it won't go through the instant QA option. And of course, you can always allow the linguist to ignore any of these steps, any of these checks from the QA engine. The list is quite extensive and it can be further extended using regex here to capture some of the most commonly used cases, the regex such as passport case, common case, and so on. So once you configure also the QA checks, the next step will allow you to configure what the project access rights are available to all the stakeholders of the project. So you can allow to receive webhooks for this project. So if there's a webhook utilized to get notifications about actions in the project, this will allow you to use them. If this is deactivated, you cannot connect a webhook to this project. You can display usernames in the LQA scorecard if an LQA step is integrated within your project. LQA stands for Language Quality Assurance. This option will display the usernames in the scorecard, so you will know who is evaluating who. If there's a requirement for confidentiality, untick this and the scorecard will be blank with no names. The option to use vendors as well allows Phrase TMS to connect with external LSPs, which can be assigned as a resource, as a vendor or a linguist to the project. If this isn't activated, the project will not be able to be assigned to LSPs, language service providers. Email notifications can be sent automatically to one system, and you can notify the job owner when the job status is changed. The job owner would be the project manager who created the project. And of course, whoever accepts it, the linguist accepting the job. The next user access allows you to either turn on or off the auto-propagation of repetitions. So the linguist will either be able to automatically populate all repetitions or not. And the next option allows you to either turn on or off the instant QA check. If this is deactivated, then the instant QA check will not be available in the editor. Some linguists might prefer that. They don't want to always be interrupted by the QA and they just run a final QA once the document is complete. This option allows you to either give them that option or not. The linguist access rights here would permit the linguist to download translation jobs, access the CAT web editor, which is the default editor for the projects. Phrase TMS also provides the option for an offline editor, but generally and typically all projects are worked within the same CAT web editor. You can view, or you can allow users to view user metadata in the CAT editor. So this means if a previous linguist has translated that TM segment, you will see that user and the user metadata in the CAT editor. Again, this might be a confidentiality issue, which allows for either activating or deactivating it. These options here will make the workflow a bit more strict. If this is activated, the next workflow step will be completed, will be available only once the previous step is completed. So it's forcing the project to follow the workflow steps. And if this isn't completed, then by default, it's not. Workflow steps can start even if the previous step is not completed yet for a quicker turnaround. The option to edit log segments, again, this is available for some of the PMs, for the PMs, but the linguists do not have that option. If this is activated, then the linguist can also edit log segments, which negates the locking of segments, but if it's required, then the PM can allow the linguist to do so. And also edit tag content and edit source, which specifically, especially the edit source option, is most commonly not used because we don't want to touch the source. It's like a sacred cow thing. We always work on the target. The vendor access options allow the vendors or the SAE job to upload references. If that's required, they can upload their own reference files, such as style guides or anything else. And to change the due date, as you can see, both of these options are deactivated because the project manager who creates the project sets the due date. But if you have an agreement with your LSP, with your vendor, you can allow them to change the due dates from here. The last two are options for external loading, so you can load external content in the CAT editor and some iPhrase in the CAT web editor, if that's required. You can set it up here. Spell checker options here include spell checker word in all caps, if that's required, and to spell check words when the first capital letter of if an illegal term is used in the source. So this would be useful, let's say, for source language German, where all the nouns use first capital letter. And then you can also change how the files will be exported to an online repository. This is relevant only when the project delivers target files to an online repository. You can change, of course, the naming rules for this. By default, it will be source language, hyphen target language, hyphen the workflow, step plus a status. Financial options of the project allows you to add a net rate scheme and a price list. As you can see, I'm getting an option here, access is denied for this specific project manager because I haven't given Selena access right to my net rate schemes and price list. And we come to the nitty-gritty part. The most important aspect of any project would be the workflow steps. As you can see, you can add up to 15 workflow steps in the system. We do have out-of-the-box workflow steps, like most commonly used would be translation, revision, and quality assessment. But you can also create your own custom workflow steps, such as I created one called demo step. Again, you can chain 15 steps together, and you can select for the LQA option to either use the basic or default profile or a specific LQA profile for a specific project. This one eliminates some of the error checks performed through the LQA. So, for example, I'm not looking to evaluate erroneous terminology or erroneous style. This can be assigned here, so you can have multiple LQA profiles, and they can be integrated with your project as well. The option for file handover allows assigned linguists to upload their documents when they work offline. This is the most commonly used case, would be downloading an XLIF from the project, working on an external XLIF editor, and then uploading back the edited XLIF. This is available, but we strongly suggest working within the tool, working within Phrase TMS, because this is the most appropriate approach, updating TMs, terminology, everything in real time, also allowing the PM to track your progress within the system. But in case where external work is also required, we provide that option so you can take your files, work offline, and then import them back to TMS. The last automation here will mark any unassigned jobs as completed when the previous workflow step has been completed. So if no linguist or no resource has been assigned to a step, this will automatically change that status of that step to completed. The next option in the wizard is about TM match context optimization. Again, the default option here is activated automatically, so context type will be recognized automatically by the Phrase TMS. But if you want to have different use or different approach, how context is recognized in the system, you can dictate that here using either previous and next segment keys, or no context, which is the most, let's say, unreliable contextual matching option. Previous and next segment matching for context means that the previous and next segment of the segment we're working on has to be the same. If they are the same, then we get a contextual match, and that's a one-on-one match, a super perfect match. Segment key is a metadata information as part of the segment. So if we have the same segment key with our translation match within the TM, then that's how the one-on-one match is achieved. Automatic allows the system to decide the best approach. And you can also use a previous or next segment as a one-on-one. So this is a Boolean operator allowing for more flexibility. It doesn't have to be both segments. It's either the top or the bottom segment, previous or next. And you can penalize multiple one-on-one matches by 1%. This is where this use case here is for when your one-on-one matches are not of the highest quality and you still want them to be edited. So we are demoting them from super perfect from one-on-one to 100%, and they can be edited. And continuous job is the last option for the wizard. The continuous job is set up with your global settings, and it just continuously monitors based on your set time intervals, import and export for content, your source content, and your target files. This is when a project is created and it's using, it's connected to an external repository. So once you've set up your entire project here, you can create this structure and then save it as a template. But let's quickly go back and use a template to actually create a project. And I'm just going to use my row MT. And as you can see, everything is pre-populated. I already have my source, like the languages, client, every configuration is available, and the project can be created. Simply click create. And of course, I have to give it a name. That's the only thing it was missing. I forgot about that. So now the project is created, but there's nothing in it. It's an empty vessel waiting to get content, which in the Phrase TMS, that's called a job. So we have a job here, and I can add a new file. I have no analysis created, no quotes, because there is no content within. I've already used my translation memories, are pre-selected by my template, my term basis, and I have no reference files. Of course, I can create a new reference file. I can add a new reference file here if it's required. And I can also manipulate and change translation memories and terminologies within the same project, within the same lifecycle of the project. I don't have to cancel it or stop it. I just need to simply click select. I can do that either for all languages in all workflow steps or not. And let's say I'm using my test TM here, but I also want to use my thread TMs. So I can just pop it to the right side. And this is my primary TM, which will also be editable. So it's in read-write mode. And I'm going to use this one as a reference TM, which only will be on read mode. It will not be edited. However, I can also change the priority of my TMs. So if I want to define priority, I'm just going to move this up and say, okay, this is now my primary TM, and this is my secondary TM. Both of them can also be in read-write mode, and both of them will be updated, or I can just deactivate one of them, just use the other one as a reference. I want to leave a page. So let's create a job. Let's add some content to our project. By the way, all these actions that we have done so far can be saved by clicking here as a template. So this is why I was told, this is why I went through the entire wizard. So if you go through this process once, then you can save this as a template, and that can be used in the future as well. Additionally, you can also share this with a vendor, share the project with a vendor, and you can archive the project. But let's now add a new job to our project. So if I click new, I have a couple of options on how I can add content to a live project. I can either do it from my terminal by simply uploading a file. So I can come here, select my sample files, docs, and use Locker. Or I can add from an online repository, which essentially connects with any connector that you're using in the TMS. So I have a list of connectors here, and I can come here, simply go to my, I don't know, Google Drive connector and say, I want to download and I want to include this project, this file here. Simply click that, file will be connected from the connector, and it will be the new job in the system. So once I selected my file, I can also upload it for all target languages in the project or specific target languages in the project. In this case, we have no files, so let's go with all languages. And I can select providers. Again, I see at the top the most relevant providers, and then underneath that, all active available providers in the system. And I can assign to one or multiple providers. So I can select Spanner, Phrase. In this case, Phrase is a vendor. It's an LSP. It's a connection with one of my colleagues. So I'm also assigning it to linguist and LSP here. I can select the option for pre-translation for this job. So this file, as soon as I upload it, it will be pre-translated using the previous settings. I can set a due date for the file, which can be different from the entire project due date. And I can notify the providers for a new work using a template, either all at once. In this way, this is a first come, first serve based configuration. Whoever accepts the task first can work on it. Or I can do it incrementally in a sequence based on all these time intervals. So if I select 60 minutes, the first user will be notified, will receive the notification. They will have 60 minutes to react. If they don't do anything, the system will move on to the next one in the list and to the next one until somebody accepts the task. Let's just add again. Okay. And here in every job, you have the option to manipulate the file import settings. So essentially what we're doing here is tweaking or editing the parser for specific configuration for our file types. So I'm uploading an MS Word file, and in here I can dictate if I want to import any hidden text, other text. All these options are available to you here when you create a project. And this, of course, can also be saved as part of the project template. So whenever you use this template for the specific file type, these import settings will be activated and will take place. Let's see why the system will allow me to upload my Lafayette document. I'll try this again. And I'll assign this to 2 users. And I'll put the phrase here. And again, create. So the file is uploaded. It goes to pre-translation because I've selected that. You can see the overall progress of each of the steps. In this case, we only have one step. I only added translation. And I can see my file here being analyzed. So you see the progress here will be confirmed, meaning that any segment is confirmed so far. So we have 0 because we didn't open the editor so far. You can see the providers. I haven't set up a due date. And I can quickly click the file and enter a CDCAT tool. And of course, I can also create analysis for all the files I've uploaded. So in this case, I want analysis for all 3 languages. I can click Analyze. Again, based on previous configurations, I can click on Analysis here and get the analysis of files. Same goes for quotes. If I click on quotes, I'll be generating a quote based on net rate schemes and price list for my file. Now, as you can see, this is already completed because I'm using full machine translation and everything is being pre-translated from the system. Further actions allowed here in the system view in the project management options in the project management screen allows the PM to edit the job. So I can take this away from Kal-El and assign it to Selena, to me, or Selena, Peter Parker, whoever, and move this user. Can change the status. So from delivered, I can go back all the way to any other previous status and can change the due date as well. The download option allows you to download the original file, any bilingual options, and the completed file as well. And if you're using an online repository, you can re-import source or target from here. Analysis performs the analysis. Pre-translate options allows you to pre-translate where the file is empty. Use human translate, which is a hybrid between a machine translation assisted by LSP. You can copy source to target where empty if you want to quickly edit the source without rewriting it, in case where we need to be precise. Let's say when we use numbers, we need the source to be copied to the target. And we can also pseudo-translate just to see what content or what part of the file can be translated. So essentially, this gives you a quick overview with pseudo-translation. Now, the tools are also quite useful here. You can email the files, or you can email a notification that the new work is done, is available to the users. You can split the file either into specific parts or every specific segment after or every X words. So we have a total of 18 segments, and I want to split the file here at every 30 words. I can do this for all the workflow steps as well. If I click split file, the system now will generate the files based on my threshold. So we have 1.1, 1.2, and so on. I can extract the terms here, and I can quickly clone the job. So if this is activated before we go to the term extraction, this gives you the option to clone the job and assign new providers, set up a new due date without doing the same upload here. The next tool is clone term extraction. Essentially, if I do this, the system will create an Excel file with suggested terms, and I can set maximum minimum length plus the frequency of my terms I want to use in the system. And I can ignore words that are a combination of alphanumeric gibberish, because that's not a good candidate for a term. I can update the source here as well as the target. If I update the source, I have two options, plus a third one, which you cannot do that on split jobs. But let's say I'm going to use full job here. Oh, of course, if they're completed, because this is a very fast workflow, won't allow me to update this. Okay. I've also completed friends as well. So yeah, this template, by the way, it's super fast. This goes through machine translation, everything is completed. But you can update the source as well. You can update the target as well, and you can upload the bilingual file. This is the option where you insert your exit files and also select how to update a TM by saving all segments or only confirm segments, or do nothing. Additionally, you can also assign providers from a template. So if nobody's assigned previously, you can simply use a template here and assign providers. And you can select this to be done either on specific jobs, so for French or German, or to all jobs in the project. So let's quickly now go and see the computer assistant translation tool, which is the editor where translation actually takes place. I'm going to open the German one, if I remember correctly. And this is the web editor for the CAT tool, where the linguist will spend most of the time working here. As you can see, everything is pre-translated because I've already used machine translation. The web editor is an industry standard configuration. You have source on the left-hand side, target on the right-hand side, and additional metadata information further to the right of my screen, including all metadata information here. The cat button, the cat tab here includes translation matches. Search option essentially is the concordance option. QA checks include the checks, and I can run a job QA, and I can see all the quality assurance issues for my target job, which is something that most of the linguists will do. I can see changes in the segment if anything has been performed. More actions, I can show matches for Greek or French, the other languages in the project. If there's any comment, I can see it here. And if there was an LQA option, I would also be seeing the checks and errors marked here in the system. So once that's done, you simply deliver the file. As you can see the status up here, it's already delivered because my project was fully automated starting from scratch and delivering the raw MT output to the PM. With that, I think I concluded everything covering the project manager role from the creation of the project all the way to its delivery from the linguist. And the floor is yours for questions now.
Thank you so much, Vasilis. This was great. Before we start with the questions, I would like to just bring to attention two other webinars. I will just quickly steal the screen. When you go to phrase.com/resources/webinars, you will find a whole library of the past webinars that we did. There are recordings available, and two specific webinars that I would like to mention are the introduction to phrase strings. Strings is another pillar of our phrase technology that you can use for localizing strings. So if you're interested, you can check it out. And then also we have an introduction to phrase TMS, but from the perspective of a linguist. So that session is focusing more on the web editor that you just saw at the end of Vasilis' presentation. So if you're interested in learning more details about the job that the translators do and how they work with Phrase TMS, this would be a session to check out. And now I will move over to Slido to see the questions. So let's start with the first one. And Vasilis, please let me know if you would like to share a screen again to show some of the answers practically.
Yeah, I would have to steal the screen from you, Clara, but you would have to read the question to me. So yeah, I can start sharing the screen.
Okay, so I will stop sharing. And in the meantime, I will read the question.
Okay.
Lorena is asking, how does the submitter portal tool work? Which plan do I need to have on the platform in order to use it? Does it work so that teams from different areas of the company can send simple translation projects? And how are they organized on the Phrase projects?
Okay, that's a whole lot of questions. Let's start with submitter portal. How does it work? Essentially, it allows users to use a connector and connect a specific repository and then come in and request translations through the portal. As you can see, I have created some of the translators portals here. Some of them are available. I have for WordPress, Sitecore, my Gigs delivery service. What it does, it allows users to create a service behind the portal that's done by the admin. And that service contains a project template, configuration of project creation, and the users come here, they don't see that configuration, they only see the service, they select the languages from and to. So let's say I want to select OMT, and I want to translate from English, German, and then they have three options to submit their content, either by uploading a file from the terminal, seeing files from the online repository, the same way as I did in the project template or the project creation, or simply pasting text, essentially typing the text. So, and once that's done, they can also add reference files. They see a summary of a cost for that project, for that content they have submitted, if there is an actual net rate behind that. and then simply submit. And this creates a project on the TMS side. Furthermore, the delivery portal is a standalone URL. You can take that URL, embed it, or use it as a standalone URL, and any user can come in, request content, and they simply have to verify their email. So they don't have to be a user in the Phrase TMS. They just go there, submit the files, and then they receive the files again to the same portal, and they also get an email notifications when the file is completed. For further more information about pricing and which prices and which versions of the Phrase suite are available, please contact our sales department. They will be more than happy to provide more information. I think that was 3 questions. Clara, what was the last one?
Yes, it was about the availability, who can use the submitter portal, if it's teams from different areas of the company.
Anyone. If you use a standard URL, you can just paste it anywhere and anyone can come in, verify their email and get content.
And how are the projects organized within Phrase, those that are submitted through the portal?
They are organized the same way as any other project within the system. And by naming them differently, you can simply separate them or see them quickly in the list here. For example, this is a project I created and it's called widget project with this number, because that's the automated naming convention for the portal. But of course, you can use macros and name the projects however you want, and they're just a project within the same project list queue. They differ in no other way than any other project in the system. Hope that covers your question, Lorena.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next question, how can I align documents and add the segments to an existing translation memory?
That's a very good question. The PM can do that by coming into translation memories. And when they create a new translation memory, you can also align files here. So you simply come in and create a translation memory, set up the target languages. But let me quickly open up an existing TM. Say this one here. And here I have the option to either import, export, or align my files. And I can do this for one source, one target file, or multiple files. Add the zip, select the language combination. The aligner is working, and then the TM is imported. Hope that covers your question. Don't remember the name, sorry. Oh, Clara, I think you're muted. I can see your lips move.
Apologies, classic mistake.
No worries, no worries.
Thank you, Vasilis. Next question is from Megan.
Okay,
how is it best to set up a project for a user who is not looking to translate directly in Phrase? Do they have to export the file into a different format prior to re-uploading to the Phrase editor?
Yes, that would be the case. Yes, that would be the case where I showed you the workflow allowing you for offline file handling. So the PM would still create the project the same way I created the project, would still add a job here. But in the workflow options, they would allow for offline file handling. And then the linguist will have to export what we call an MXLIF. An XLIF file is an interchangeable file format specifically used for translation, contains both source and target, and can be edited into an offline editor, same as this editor, but it's an installation on a blind terminal. It's not online. It doesn't work on the internet. So the linguist will be able to work offline, but the PM has to allow them to take the offline files, and then they have to be able to import the file back into the project. So you won't be working, if you're a linguist, you won't be working with the source file in its native format, but in the XLIF format.
And for re-uploading, it's also an XLIF format.
Yes, yes. Whatever you get, the XLIF you get, then you upload it back to the system. Exactly.
Perfect, thank you. And then Joanna is asking for the link to the Linguistic Perspective webinar. So I will paste it to the chat for everyone.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see any other question at the moment. So thank you very much, Vasilis, for the presentation today and for answering all of the questions. For our audience, I will add that there will be a short survey popping up right after we close this session, so you can let us know your feedback on the webinar and also some suggestions for future webinars if there's something specific that you are interested in. Thank you very much and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.